think I figured it out.
That sounds good. Nice. All right, cool.
Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. Yes, technology is not fun. And it actually had to do with something that was open in the background, not even inside of this one. And so it was doubling up on it. So that's all right. We're here and we're ready to talk health with you guys and to relay information and help you better your lives. So thank you for being here. So Michelle, I want to start with, just for those that may not know you, even though I think everybody knows you inside of this group, but share what originally got you into the realm of diet. What interested you?
Yeah, very briefly, my health journey began when I was 12. I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. I was 5 feet tall, 57.5 pounds, so incredibly underweight. Ended up in an inpatient treatment center for 2 months, had a 24-hour tube feeding system. I did end up becoming weight restored, but I had chronic anxiety, depression, lost weight, relapsed. And I was even told as a young person, like, hey, that people don't really recover from eating disorders. Like, this is just going to be something you'll have to deal with your entire life. You're going to have racing thoughts around food. When I was in treatment, because I was there, 60 days, people would come back. It wasn't unusual for people to leave treatment and then come back several weeks later. But I just had this intuition that there was something in nutrition that could actually improve my mental health, because as I went through like high school and into my adolescence and into college, other people seemed to be able to eat normally and not be dealing with all these issues. And so, when I was much younger, my intuition was it must be lots of fruits and vegetables, antioxidants, maybe really interested in like EPA and DHA, 2 fatty acids. And, I wanted to become a dietitian because I thought, surely if I learn more, really interested in areas of like mental health and the brain. But of course, as I've shared before, as I went through the dietetic internship, so many things didn't make sense. We'd go into the room with someone with type 2 diabetes, and I was told we were going to dose them consistently with carbs. We teach them how to eat, up to like 90 grams of carbs for breakfast and 15 grams per snack, consistently throughout the day so they could match their insulin. And even as a young person, I would just ask questions like, oh, wow, if their blood sugar is high and carbohydrates make their blood sugar go up, should we teach them to eat less carbohydrates? And I was kind of pegged as this difficult dietetic student, like, no, carbs are the foundation of human nutrition. And I did find it interesting that it didn't matter what disease state you had. You could be, once anorexic, you could be extremely underweight, or just be obese. You could have type 2 diabetes, you could have kidney failure. All nutrition was very similar, with few exceptions. When people with cardiovascular disease, we would put on low-fat diets, which we can talk about what a disaster that was. And as I became a dietitian and as I practiced, you saw the revolving door of sickness. And I became an athlete and followed kind of the traditional, very high carbohydrate diet and suffered a lot of my own health issues. And so, in 2019, I completely changed, went from a very high carbohydrate to a very low carbohydrate diet. And it just, within weeks, my mental health improved to the point where, at that time, my wife of, we'd been together for over 11 years, said like, this is the best your anxiety has been, the 11 years I've known you. Like, I don't know if I like this way of eating, but this is nuts. And, that kind of led us down the rabbit hole of let's learn, like, why is this improving? And, at that time we had good, very good published data on ketogenic diets and type 2 diabetes. And I remember being angry, like, why didn't anybody teach me? Like, I had patients that were diabetic for 30 years. I'm like, Doc, this guy Westman got people off, off insulin in 8 days. Like, I was just told that was impossible. And so it just kind of, you start asking questions. It's like once your eyes have been opened. And then now that I've been in this space for, 6 years, I see an evolution, right? I see, I feel like we've really made some positive movements, like with the Bazooki's really funding a lot of the mental health research. And I also think there's nuance to it. I don't think that everybody necessarily has to be low carb or zero carb forever, but we can certainly use these therapeutic carbohydrate restricted diets as tools. I mean, they're so effective for mental health disorders and type 2 diabetes and obesity. And then within those things, there's nuance, right? Like how I eat as someone who, especially when I'm training a lot, now I'm an ultra runner. So, if I'm running 80 miles a week, I'm going to eat very differently than my, patient with an A1C of like 12, right? So
Absolutely.
it's just a pleasure. It's exciting to be actually being able to teach and prescribe nutrition guidelines that work. Now I get to actually see people heal. Working with Dr. Glant, we get to see, I had a gentleman reverse take his A1C from 10 to 5.4 in 71 days, no meds, pretty incredible. And so, yeah, now I just feel really blessed that I get to share, that I get to talk about this way of eating. And I'm certainly a huge advocate for, like the mental health disorders. I really feel, especially with eating disorders, we we can have a much better approach than just throwing the standard American diet at people.
Yeah. Yeah. At the conference last year, Robert Sykes, the CEO of Keto talked about eating disorders and the bulimia that he went through as a bodybuilder, and just how the ketogenic diet freed him. And I've heard you speak about it, and I think it's a shame that our guidelines don't let us currently help people in that realm. And in the hospital setting, no one's ever going to think about giving that anorexic person the ketogenic diet. It's just going to be the whatever you want to eat. Sounds like we also have something in common, and I talked about this publicly a couple months ago. When I was first out of my career, I was a little naive, and I followed whatever rules I was given. And then when I found out about low carb and saw this huge change, I was naive again. And I thought that was the blanket answer for everybody. This is kind of the savior of the universe. And now I'm not backing away from low carb in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm just realizing low carb is not the blanket answer for every single thing that is out there. It's a great tool. We need to be able to use it. But it's not the answer for everyone, which it's getting me out of my little outline that I have here. But, recently we've had a lot of low carb influencers backing away from carnivore, keto, things like that, adding things back into their diet. I think it speaks to, our bodies evolve and change over time, but it's confusing to a lot of the people that are out there listening to us, who maybe it's new to them and they don't know that history of where we've came from and how we've used it. So I'm getting questions of, do I need to stop doing keto? Do I need to stop doing carnivore? So have you been fielding more of those questions as people are kind of moving around the space a little bit and figuring out what works for them?
For what I do, not as much, just because I am dealing with incredibly sick. I mean, like I said, A1C, it's rare to get below 10, so I'm talking 10, 12, I think I saw 14. So a lot of people are really just starting. And so once again, these tools, this keto, carnivore, extremely therapeutic, carbohydrate restricted, because when you're that severely type 2 diabetic, like there's no room left at the end. Like I tell people it's like a hoarder's house. It's like, there's no room to put it. Just, you cannot bring in more stuff. Like it is oxidation and inflammation. Like we need to get rid of it. Don't bring it in.
Yeah.
But I do think a couple things. I've noticed something that I think helps some of my type 2 diabetics, because a lot of people, I mean, we didn't get this way, and we can talk more about this, from eating this way once or twice or 3 times or 300 times. We got this way from eating years and years and years. It's just like anything, if I'm going to be ultimately a really successful athlete, I remember one time someone told me, like, gosh, it must be so nice to be able to run so easily. I was like, I've been doing this for decades, like every day range, but the point is, it's time on task, right? It's consistency. But as far as the carbohydrates go, to me, it makes sense. Like we know no human was vegan. Like that's a very silly thing. But no human was purely carnivore. And the people that were carnivores also weren't sterile carnivores, meaning they didn't have everything in little packages. They would be eating fur and the bacteria and all this stuff, right? And so thinking that we can never eat, some plants, some seasonal things, like I don't think that completely makes sense. And let's say, you're metabolically healthy now. Like to me, it 1,000% makes sense to be adding some of those foods back. Now, on the flip side, how many people are metabolically healthy in this country? Statistically, less than 7%. So I think this is where the confusion comes in. Most people absolutely need a therapeutic carbohydrate restricted diet for a set period of time. But what we're seeing, let's say people do that for 2 years, 4 years, whatever. And all of a sudden they're like, I don't feel this. I just got my thyroid tested. My labs aren't, holy crap, why is my A1C going up? Like, once again, your body, it's the one thing in nature, right? It's always moving. It's always changing. And we know certainly as we get older, like just living, your cells are turning over, things are going to change. And so just being cognizant of that, and it's, as humans, we'll often continue to do the same thing over and over, even when it's not working. And it's hard, I know for me, it's been an incredibly beneficial tool for my mental health, But, maybe I'm fortunate that for my running, I've always added some carbohydrates back in. So I've never thought like, oh, I'm going to completely zero carb. But I could see how somebody who's like, look, I'm kind of scared to add it back in because it helped me lose all this weight and help, reverse all these things. But, you really have to, that's one of my theories in life is you always have to be open to growing, learning, changing, and evolving. So once again, if something's not working, you're not feeling well, it makes sense in my opinion. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It isn't like, well, gee, I was eating all meat and now I'm going to go eat, bagels and cereal. It's like, gee, I was eating all meat. Now I'm going to add a couple of blueberries and some sauerkraut. Done.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to overcomplicate this. And that's why I think if we can keep it really simple for people. And I also think as professionals, we need to listen to people. And maybe we haven't. I've heard people come to me and say like, gosh, I hadn't been feeling well for a while. And people told me I needed more fat. I needed carnivore harder. And, once again, carbohydrates in and of themselves are not bad. I would certainly argue that our explosion of processed foods, these seed oils and these, very ultra processed carbohydrates have contributed to the obesity crisis. Yeah. But we don't need to be scaring people from sweet potatoes and blueberries if they are metabolically healthy. This is where I think some confusion comes in too. I saw something online where someone was arguing like apples didn't cause type 2 diabetes. Okay, I believe you 100%. But my gentleman who has type 2 diabetes, if he eats an apple, he will see a significant raise in blood sugar because he's ill. But guess what? If we get his A1C all the way down, stabilize things, perhaps he can add, some carbohydrates back in his diet if that's something he chooses to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that is all good advice, just pointing back into the individuality of your nutrition and where you're at in your journey and reinforcing that one, if it's still serving you, if keto, carnivore, whatever is still serving you and benefiting you, there's no reason to change anything. You don't have to, but if it's not serving you as well as it did day one, maybe it is okay. But 100% whole foods, we're not talking about adding back Oreos.
Yes. Yeah. I would never advocate. Yeah. It's really interesting. I think, just getting people, my wife and I were talking about this the other night. If we could just get people to just eat whole foods, in general. And, if you've been in the space for a while, sometimes I forget just how much processed food people eat. Statistically, I think it's over 70% of us eat out at least once a day. Mm-hmm. That's rolling the dice, whatever they put in there, it tends to be very high sugar, lots of weird oils, very high calories, high carbohydrates. And some people, I think it's like 40% twice a day. Wow. So if we can get people to just cook at home, find a few very simple meals, beef, some chicken thighs, pork chops, that in and of itself makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's bring this back around to something that you and I texted about before is executing consistency. You are that person who has the type 2 diabetes and you start on this low carb diet, but then you get in your own way. You maybe let a holiday get in the way or a birthday or who knows what. How do we get out of our own way? How do you execute consistency in your life and how do you recommend it for your clients?
Yeah. Gosh. First of all, I just want to validate that it is not, it's simple, but it is not easy. I think just wrapping our heads around that, this is not easy. The world is not set up for you to succeed. If it was, 97% of us would, 93% of us wouldn't be metabolically ill. And honestly, that might be a low. It might be more than that. So one thing that I tell people, a great book, if anybody's interested, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, excellent book. One thing he talks about and that I really appreciate is that, how to get your health back, how to reverse your type 2 diabetes is it's literally just doing the same thing, the consistent thing every single day. But you know what? Statistically, 19 out of 20 people will not. Think about that. So I can tell somebody, okay, we're going to eat beef, we're going to eat butter, we're going to throw in some avocado if they want. I can make a great plan. We can even get their studies, buy them food. It's there, ready to go. And 19 out of 20 people will not, because going for a 15-minute walk, not super complicated. If you're able, 19 out of 20 people will not. And when I say will not consistently. Oh, most people will do it a day, 2 days. Why? It's so easy to do, but it's also so easy not to do. And I tell people, one, you cannot trust your eyes. Let's say you go to the gym. Let's say you're through an archery weight, 400 pounds. You go to the gym once, you're still 400 pounds. Week later, you busted your ass all week. You're sore. You're still out of shape. A month later, she's wise. I don't really feel that much better. And people quit. Quit. And so you have to have this philosophy. You literally have to have an internal philosophy. Like nobody can do it for you. I have found that out as a young dietitian. You so badly, you're like, I have all this great information. If you just follow it, you have to decide that my health is so precious that I will commit. And if you're a faith person, like the Bible is so clear on this. It is like, I will walk by faith, not by sight, even when I cannot see. Because if I depend on my eyes, I'll quit. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna feel. We know, especially when you first start this diet, you're not gonna feel great. All your friends are drinking. They're eating pizza. Oh, it's Thanksgiving. Oh, this sucks. I can't eat this stuff. But if your philosophy is so strong and you're just like, I'm going to do this. I'm committing to do this. Like it almost is like you have to change like who you are and what's important to you. And it's very interesting. A lot of times the people I work with, I can tell relatively quickly who is like going to be successful and who is going to be, for lack of a better word, like a hot mess. Just they'll argue with you, they'll defend their, what about just a little bit of this? Oh, what about my birthday? Oh, and that will never work. Because, the problem with like, well, just once, I'm going to do it just once. And I'll have people all the time tell me like, yeah, I had ice cream. Like, what's the big deal? Like, I just had it once and nothing happened. Well, you're 1,000% right. That's the problem. It's a Trojan horse. And it's teaching your brain that, oh, I can just do this once and nothing happens. Well, guess what you're going to do? You're going to do it again and again. And nothing happened. Well, nothing happened. Okay, well, now I'm going to start next Monday. Oh, and I ate some crap. Oh, I'm going to start next week. It's consistently setting yourself up. That's the same kind of talk that active addicts use. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Oh, I'm going to change. So you literally have to change your philosophy on it. And once again, this is not like, I've made a zillion mistakes. I've, coming certainly from an eating disorder background, like I literally had to decide like, last time was the last time, I can't, I can't fast. I don't restrict. Like last time was the last time. So that's what I tell people. Like you have to decide that last piece of cake, that was the last time. Forever for the rest of your life? Not necessarily until we get metabolically healthy. We're going to get metabolically healthy. Guess what? That's at least 3 months. You're hopefully, I always look at however old they are. You're 42. Sometimes it's sad. They're like 20. You're 35. You're 62. You want to live till 90. So give me 3 months where we change our philosophy. We change. And you also have to set yourself up. You have to prepare. It's not going to magically happen for you. I like to use the example of like, can you imagine if I like walked to a race, to a starting line and was just like, hey, size 10, who's got a size 10 shoe? Does anyone bring an extra size 10? But that's what we do with our food. We show up and we're just like, well, I'll just wander around to this restaurant here. Or maybe there'll be something in the vending machine or cafeteria. It's like, it is the most important thing in your health if you're metabolically healthy. I will argue this, and we have so much good data that circadian rhythm matters and sleep matters and exercise matters. If you are sick, if your A1C is 14, you can exercise until you pass out. We've got to change how you eat. Your body is saturated with glucose in your body, your muscles and your liver. So anyway, it really is being so committed and taking it one day at a time, just every single day, execute. I have people sometimes check off like, okay, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and through, we have it. Oh no, they'll message us through the app. I had eggs, I had a chicken salad, I had whatever, that consistency. And like I said, it's boring. It seems like I'm not getting anywhere. I've been doing this for a week. I've been doing this for 2 weeks, but guess what? All of a sudden, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, like, man, I'm starting to feel a little better. Oh man, my pants are fitting a little better. Wow, I like sleeping better. Like it will happen. It's the story of, it's like compound interest, right? It's the story of like the pennies doubling. If you take a penny and you double it every month, well, it's like you get like $1 million after, because it continues to double and double. And, exercise and eating doesn't work like that. But even if you just got 1% better, by the end of the year, you'd be 3.65 times better. That's incredible. You'd be 3 times better than you are right now. And who wouldn't want to be like, wow, I'm 3 times stronger. My marriage is 3 times better. My A1C is 3 times less. Like it's incredible. Yeah. But you have to change your internal philosophy. And you'll also, this is my overall experience is you have to change how you think, because whatever got you here is clearly, I'm going to plug my Let me get about
it. More technical stuff. But I often tell people we have to choose our hard. You know, it is hard to make changes. Yes, it is hard to make changes, but it's also hard to live in the condition that you're living in if you're not metabolically healthy, if you have diabetes, if you have kidney issues, if you have heart disease, that's hard. So you're literally choosing which hard you want. And I think part of the problem too, and you can back me up on this or not, is some people have a hard time envisioning that life could actually be better, that changing the diet could actually make such a significant difference. They just don't see it as possible, possibly because we've inbred into people that these diseases are chronic and not reversible and not fixable. Do you feel like that's part of kind of the consistency, is they don't just ever see the end game?
Well, two things real quick. Like, you either choose hard now or you don't choose.
Yeah.
Like, respectfully, because you either get to say, I'm choosing hard now. Because it's easy to eat the McDonald's and stay like, or if you don't, then you don't get to choose later. You know, you will be very sick. And type 2 diabetes has a horrific ending. Like, it is infections, amputations, maggot therapy. That still grosses me out. You know, you just have these rotting. That's actually a real thing. I couldn't believe that when my dietitian coworker asked me if I could take maggots over to her. I was like, is this for real? Yeah, it's a therapy they use. It helps eat necrotic tissue. But anyway, so being able to like fully embrace and yes, I think people have been told like these are progressive chronic diseases, but we have just become such a soft society. Like, when did this happen? Like, we were watching this documentary of soldiers storming Normandy. They're like 18, 19 years old. It's phenomenal. And now it's like asking people to go for a 10-minute walk. And I don't know, you know, it's amazing. Take some personal responsibility. Yeah. Like, you're okay. You are not going to starve to death. This is, every person listening to this is incredibly capable of making changes and trusting that, you know, we're also, I think another problem too is Amazon and Google, all these things have made it be like quick. And we've lost the ability to appreciate the process. Like, farmers know I plant, I have to cultivate, and then I harvest. And we want to plant and harvest. I want to go to the gym and feel amazing. I want to work for a month and then ask for a raise. You know, it's like you've got to cultivate. It takes time, you know? And so really buying into that and really believing, but you're right, you do have to believe things can get better, you know? And unfortunately, a lot of people have this victim mentality instilled into them. You know, I believe that if you want something in your life to change and you have the capability to change it, and what do I mean by that? If you want to be 6 feet tall and you are 5'5", that's not something you have the capability to change, right? But if you are 400 pounds and you want to lose 100 pounds, you have the capability, you have the moral responsibility. I mean, God will put it on your heart. You will feel it. You are made for more. You are made to be healthier. And this is my overwhelming experience. Because, you know, I felt that when I was underweight. Like, I knew, like, there's a better life for me. I'm not supposed to be restricting and hating myself and hiding what I'm doing and spending my entire life around food. And, like, you know, I know friends, I was a mess. And so and it's just brick by brick. It's taking things one day at a time. And so much of that starts with like, okay, let me heal my body and brain. Yeah. How do I heal my body and brain? Let me do it with nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah. Nutrition is medicine. And I hate it that medicine lost its way hundreds of years ago, not having that be our primary medicine, but it is our number one medicine. So let's get to some questions from the community that is out there. So if you have questions, please put it in there and we'll get to it. I'm going to address a couple of questions first, just saying, is Dr. Barry gone? Is he leaving? Is he and Nisha getting a divorce? No. Dr. Barry is being more active in his community, his local community at a political level. And I've been filling in on some Mondays for him and having some special guests for me. I just saw he and Nisha like 2 weeks ago. They look like they're still doing just fine to me. So I don't think they're getting a divorce. And I am trying to help and build and do my part within the community to get information out there. So no, he's not going anywhere, and they're still.
I can't compete, Amanda, with Dr. Barry. Well, we will never be that cool, you guys.
I'm just trying to do my little part, just my little part in there. That's all it is. All right. So This is a question from Ireland. She's working towards carnivore diet, battling paranoid schizophrenia, very anxious all the time. Was a carb baby. She's 58. Just any general advice for someone kind of in that environment looking to improve their metabolic health, mental health together.
There are very good studies when you have a chance. I mean, I think you could even just do a simple Google search for schizophrenia and ketogenic diet. The Bazooki's, their son was bipolar, and so they funded several studies. One was specifically for schizophrenia, and they actually showed that I think it was 6 weeks on a ketogenic diet, it actually shifted the brain chemistry. And so your question, like very simple things to do. One of the main things to get into ketosis is just getting those carbohydrates down. And that is extremely difficult to do if you're, you said you're a carb baby, you're probably eating lots of carbohydrates. And so one, make sure you're taking electrolytes, you're drinking a lot of water, and you are stocking yourself with proteins, fats, and if you're going to include some like non-starchy vegetables, like some lettuce and things, that also might be a good opportunity to like work with either a dietitian or a health coach just to kind of get you started if you're not exactly sure what to do. But if I were you, I would just do 3 meals, make it as simple as possible, things you enjoy. Like if I said, what could you love eating for breakfast? Oh, I love eggs. Oh, I'd just rather have hamburger patties. Yeah, do that 3 times a day and see if you don't feel just like miraculously better. And like, I would say within 3 to 4 weeks, but do make sure you salt, make sure you have a lot of water. And certainly if you're on any medications, I would check, I guess we should probably disclaim that, but there are psychiatric medications that can shift with the like lower carb diets.
Yeah. Yeah. So stay in touch with your psychiatrist for sure. In general, do people with mental health conditions really need to get higher ketone levels to see benefits, or is it just
Always.
moving?
In my experience, not always, sometimes. So, and I've had people tell me that they feel better. I actually, I don't think I won't use her name, but I have a woman who was like 0.7. So guys, technically anything 0.5 or above is in ketosis, but some people try to get 1.5. It's very difficult to get into like 3 or unless you're doing several days of fasting. But she felt better at 0.7, but even, actually dropped protein a little bit, increased fat, got it up to like 1.2, and said she felt even better. But I've had people, say, oh, 0.8 or, oh, I'm 0.3. I'm not even technically, and they feel much better. I think part of even feeling better is just simply stabilizing blood glucose. I think your brain is using some free fatty acids and ketones, even if you're not technically always in ketosis. That's just my Michelle hypothesis. There's no research behind that. But the people that I've seen, even on low carbs, even sometimes not necessarily producing ketones, feel better. But if if you're in that situation where you're like, yeah, I've been low carb for a while, I don't know, then I would definitely give it somebody that can like maybe help you tweak your diet where you're either, dropping protein, increasing fat to see if getting ketones get better. But yeah, I've been surprised. Some, not always.
Oh, interesting. What about using, and this is just me, not more personal question or more comment questions, but ketone supplements for mental health type conditions. Have you ever seen that be beneficial or heard of people doing that, like to boost it?
Yeah, sometimes they're a really nice bridge too, because they will like immediately get you into ketosis, but they do have a pretty short half-life. So you do kind of come back down. And they are kind of expensive. But if let's say like, if I could redo it, like these are, I'm not even sure if they were available. Now they have ones too that don't taste horrific. They used to be pretty rough.
Yeah.
I certainly think like, let's say if you're in a really rough state, I would absolutely add that to a ketogenic diet to see if that doesn't kind of jumpstart it. I don't think you have to, like, if you're just like, gosh, that's not in my budget, but that could definitely make things easier for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. Why so many tired carnivores? What causes protein deficiency on a high protein diet? How much protein does the body actually? That's a lot of questions all at once.
Yeah.
I'll let you take them however.
It depends. What we know, like, especially as you get older, your body does not use protein as well. It doesn't process it as well. So you need like more protein and you need it to be like a higher bioavailability. So what causes protein deficiency on a high protein diet? I personally haven't seen like protein deficiency on high protein diets. I guess you could theoretically, if you're not getting enough calories, because I always tell people your body's number one function is got to keep your heart beating, right? And protein has so many functions in the body. People often associate it with like, oh, it's for muscle. No, it's for like, well, yes, it's for muscle, but it's also for like hormone production. It's for cell communication. It is for your immune system. And so you really want it to do those things. You don't necessarily want it to always be coming back through for, gluconeogenesis to feed your body, to feed your brain. And that's why you want to make sure you get enough fat. It's very dangerous, in my opinion, to eat a very, like if you just ate 800 calories of chicken, you're going to get very sick without enough fat. Yes. So I guess theoretically that could, if you're not getting enough total calories, how much protein does the body actually utilize? I'm not sure anybody knows. Yeah. I think in general, I think 1 gram per pound is not a bad idea. I certainly think, the RDA was 0.8 per kilogram. Mm-hmm. That's not enough, so it may have to mean, and when I say 1 gram per pound, that's like your ideal body weight. So if you're like 400 pounds, you don't need 400 grams of protein. Let's say, okay, well, I want to be 220. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you can dose it, and there's been different studies. They used to think like you really need to carefully dose it through the day. And they said, you may not necessarily need to, but I still think it makes sense to split it up. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And it also just depends on weights, a 120 pound distance runner is going to need less than, less than a 120 pound long distance runner, right? I'm probably going to need more because I'm very active. So yeah, that's a really nuanced question. I don't know why people are tired. Maybe they need a bit of, maybe they need to make sure they have enough calories. And
I've seen more of a fat deficiency more than a protein deficiency because we're just so stuck on eating the leaner meats here in the woods. I assume in yours as well. We think we have to eat chicken all the time or lean fish all the time, and we're not getting enough fat. That, and I have seen some people after being low carb long enough, they see some thyroid things shift off, and so maybe that has to do with it. There's not converting enough T3 over, so maybe having that checked. But honestly, I'd see it more with fat. Okay, this question says, can 6 pounds a day of beef, horse, lamb affect the function and overall health of your pancreas? I've never eaten horse. I don't want to eat horse.
I can't imagine. I don't think I've ever eaten 6 pounds of beef. That's impressive. No. The overall function of your pancreas. Well, your pancreas is responsible for secreting, insulin and as well as enzymes. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm trying to think in my head, 16 times 6 times 7, like how many grams of protein? That sounds like a lot of protein. I don't know if you're a very, very large human, that might be a little bit more protein than you need.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I mean, you could certainly how do you measure the health of your pancreas? You could certainly get like a fasting insulin level. You could get a few other tests checked. But my first question, you'd be like, okay, why are we eating 6 pounds? Like maybe that's your nutrition needs. Like if you're a 390 pound linebacker, then yeah, maybe that's totally fine. I don't think in and of itself, protein it causes any negative effects. Certainly like anything, though, if you're eating a massive amount of excess, just like if you're not getting enough, you're going to have a problem. Similar thing with carbohydrates. Like I've never met a person who was like, yeah, I ate a couple blueberries every day and I got diabetes. But, if you eat a bunch of crap, you're going to have problems. So yeah, I apologize. When you guys give the questions, if you can give a little context too, that's definitely helpful.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. All right. Do any of these conditions improve on carnivore? Vasomotor rhinitis, which is the non-allergic, and POTS, the postural orthostatic tachycardic syndrome, and migraines.
Yeah, I've definitely seen migraines. A lot of migraines, they think even like being in ketosis, like you're once again fueling your brain off a different substrate than glucose can really help. And so if you were carnivore, I would think if it was me and I was doing a carnivore for that, I would do a much higher fat carnivore. Yeah, POTS is really interesting. I haven't seen any research on carnivore and POTS. I would imagine, once again, stabilizing blood glucose is always a good thing, but as far as like improving that I don't know. And the other one,
like postnasal drip.
Yeah.
Drainage.
Yeah, that I don't know. But I have seen like allergies and other things because once again, you're removing a lot of foods that are potentially allergenic. We've been kind of conditioned to think that like all vegetables are good for us, all fruits are good for us, where in reality, a lot of those things can be like irritating or have potential allergens. So one of the reasons a carnivore diet is a really good thing, even temporarily, is to kind of like remove anything that might be causing, any inflammation and oxidation. And then from there, you can start to add stuff back in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. I haven't necessarily seen direct research on drainage and POTS, but I have clinically seen it improve, and personally
Okay,
seen
cool.
it improve is not the POTS, but the allergy type stuff. Definitely seen that. All right. My new doctor said I don't need my armor and T3 because my body will heal with diet and vitamins. I am all about healing myself, but I've heard I will still need thyroid help. Can you explain?
Yeah, I want to say Armor is gosh, I had somebody that was telling me about this. It's some type of medication for thyroid. Do you know what
Thyroid
that
is a mixture of T3 and T4 both together. It's a natural desiccated form, not a synthetic form of thyroid.
is? Okay, because my body will heal with diet and vitamins.
But just the general, I think I would look at it from can hypothyroidism will it heal just with diet and vitamins?
I don't know. I mean, just that's one of those things I'm not sure we have. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people are on various thyroid medications, but I also know I've heard people do really well on low carb diets. And then some people say that low carb diets actually exacerbate some of the issues. So, I mean, I think one of the reasons that these animal based diets are so effective, just like you said, they are so dense in a lot of those B vitamins and zinc and folate and iron.
Mhm.
If it was me and I was like, what, I'd really rather try this, without medication. I always think, unless it's like a dangerous situation, it's acceptable to ask your doctor, say, hey, you know what? Especially like if your doctor wants to put you on a statin or on God's other diabetic medication, say, hey, how about I try this for 30 days, 60, whatever, and then can we retest?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that? Unless it's like a super serious something, I imagine most doctors would be okay with that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think from the question, it almost sounds like she's on the medicine and the doctor's saying she doesn't need it. There again, the context side of things. But
Mhm.
Hashimoto's, the autoimmune thyroid disorder, can improve in some individuals on a low carb ketogenic grain free wheat free diet. It can. I've seen it. Does it in everybody? Not in everybody. So it's going to be a very individualized type treatment there.
Yeah. And so maybe if you're open to it, like say like, yeah, I would, hey doctor, I want to keep this prescription, but let's try this for 3 months without it. Okay, cool. And then if it's not better, yeah. Because and you guys, there's also no like gold medals for like if you need a prescription or something, like that's totally what I think sometimes we've demonized the medications. The goal is just not to be taking a medication for something that maybe you could potentially utilize in nutrition for. But if you're doing everything right nutritionally and you're still having some issues that could, be
Yeah.
helped by that. There's no issue. I think
Yeah.
that's fine.
No issue, no shame. The goal should be health. However, health happens, not necessarily just to be med free. All right, Michelle, on running for mental health, I'm low carb. Do you think that would work for half marathoner runners? Do you think adding some carbs back in when training or racing is necessary?
Yes, I do. Why is my having fun with the battery state? Okay.
Because
Yes, I absolutely do. I know today my computer is like, you know what? Since we had volume issues, how about I become unplugged every 20 minutes? I do. I think low carb, the goal of running is I want to be able to oxidize as much fat for fuel as possible, even at faster paces and higher heart rates. But it does not matter how metabolically efficient I am, I'm still going to be oxidizing some glucose. And so it doesn't matter if you're a super high carb athlete or a super low carb athlete, you want to defend muscle glycogen. And so, like you specifically said, half marathon. Like if you said, look, Michelle, I'm going to be running 3 miles a couple times a week. Do I really have to add in carbs? No, probably not, especially if your goal is like weight loss. But for performance specifically, and certainly for that kind of distance, you're going to benefit from adding carbohydrates back in. And so,
Mhm.
kind of how I've structured it in the past is I would start my run with either just some like fat, coconut oil, MCT in my coffee. And then about 45 minutes into the run, then start dosing with carbohydrates because you're not going to be getting that insulin response. And then
Mhm.
kind of figure out about how many carbohydrates per hour you need, whether that's, 25, 50, however, it'll change how more metabolically, no, that's the wrong word. As you're able to oxidize more fat, you'll need less carbohydrates.
Okay.
But yeah, and if you're a bigger human, you might need more carbohydrates. And then from there, if that's what I've done in the past that's worked,
Yeah.
fat, start the run, dose every, at about 40, 45 minutes, and then every half hour. And then you don't finish the run just completely wrecked. because, ideally, you're going to want to be able to recover and go again. So I definitely do. And I can talk if you're interested, feel free to shoot me an email and I can get more specific on that situation.
What do you dose? What carbohydrates do you use to dose during a race? Or even during
I've tried a lot of different, and it gets weird, especially the super long runs. Like towards the end, it's just all bets are off, like I hadn't had a Sprite in like 30 years and it was just like, felt like Jesus, you're just after 6 hours of running. But in general, I'll stick to like Tailwind. It's just very simple, just like a sugar solution. Obviously something I would never just sit and drink at rest, but something I'd use for sports.
Yeah, awesome. A weight loss question. David says he's lost 29 pounds in 3 months and the weight loss has stopped. Is my body adjusting to the loss and will it start again?
Well, congratulations on 29 pounds.
Yeah.
And I think, anytime you hit a plateau, I think, one, I'm glad, I always tell people, don't freak out. But also, I think it makes sense to do something a little different, Like, I always say, if you ran 3 miles every day for a month, like, you'd actually start to become less fit. Isn't that wild? Like, if you did, I'm running 3 miles a day, 10-minute mile pace, like, your body gets used to it. And so as an athlete, sometimes you run longer, sometimes you run faster. And so I would say for you, I would switch it up a little bit, meaning, are you doing some resistance training? Are you doing some cardio sessions or some sprinting? Does it make sense to do a little bit of intermittent fasting if you're not doing that? Does it make sense to shift your macros? And just see, because, ultimately what is like fat loss? Fat loss is keeping insulin low. How do you keep insulin low? Low carb diet, certainly some exercise, resistance training. That's what I would do.
Yeah, absolutely. How does someone know that they're metabolically healthy? That's a great question. We just throw that.
That is a great question.
I think everybody knows what we mean. So
I apologize. I should have defined that. So metabolically healthy, and I would love, if let's just say one, getting a lab panel done, like a basic lab panel. And I would love if when you get your lab panels done, ask your doctor, can I have a fasting insulin? Can I make sure I have my A1C and my fasting insulin? Because I'm seeing more people, I don't know if you're seeing this in your clinic, but I am seeing people with like normal A1Cs, but fasting insulin like off the chart. So if you think about that real quick, guys, and I'm going to answer your question. My blood glucose is normal. So it's like, I'm a lot of the times these people are obese. So I don't have type 2 diabetes. What's the problem? Well, your insulin is so high. Your pancreas is pumping out so much insulin. And insulin is a hormone that says, like, don't burn fat, store it. Like, it is a fat storage hormone. It shuts down your body's ability to oxidize fat. That's why we don't want to have a bunch of carbs right before we run, because we don't want to stop our body's ability from oxidizing fat, So anyway, so when if someone said, like you said, how do I know if I'm metabolically healthy? I have the absence of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. I'm in the absence of elevated blood glucose. I'm not worried about elevated LDL. So your doctor's like, oh, your LDL is high. I'm not worried about that. I want my triglycerides to be relatively low. I want my triglycerides under 100. We want to look at that HDL to LDL ratio. I apologize, right off my head. I'm like, oh gosh, I can't remember exactly what that's supposed to be. But you do want to have, you don't want to have a super low HDL. Sometimes we see people with a really high LDL and you have a super low HDL. It's like, oh, that could be kind of an issue. We look at like, what is your waist circumference? Because often people will be storing a lot of fat, like in their belly. Sometimes guys have like the man boobs, like that tends to mean you have elevated insulin. You've got elevated visceral fat too. Visceral fat's very dangerous, y'all. There's two different types of fat. There's subcutaneous fat and visceral fat. Subcutaneous is like the kind you can pinch, like the fat on your arms. Visceral is what's around your organs. So if you've got like the beer belly guys, or girls, I guess, a lot of times like in their hips, in your butt, like that can be problematic. So how do you know if you have visceral fat? You can actually get a DEXA scan. It actually can show you how much visceral fat you have, but that's a measure of metabolic health. So if someone told me, like, am I metabolically healthy? Absence of diabetes, absence of cardiovascular disease, it's like a specific weight circumference they use, but I would also just say like I don't want to say like you have a quote unquote normal BMI, because you might be extra muscular, but you're like they have like a specific thing, but I think as far as BMI goes, but I don't think that's always accurate.
Yeah.
God, there's one other thing. We already talked about cholesterol. But if you think about that, guys, like how many people do you know that are either overweight or obese, so they're not metabolically healthy, have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, have some type of cardiovascular or blood lipid issue? I probably can't remember the last one, but I do also think like from a fitness standpoint, like I don't believe this is in there, but you need to be able to lift like basic weights. Like you need to be able to lift your groceries out of the cart. You need to, I mean, we say this kind of laughing, but you know, I see a lot of people as we get older, if you fall, you know, you're statistically not nearly as likely to continue on with your current health if you have like a hip fracture. So do be a basically strong human. You know, unfortunately they have these videos on social media of these people. I mean, I actually interviewed a gentleman who said he was so obese, you know, he was in the front yard and he was sitting down and his 2-year-old went into the street and he couldn't get there. And thank God the car stopped. He was like, that's what changed my life. Like I was so fat that I could not get there fast enough, you know, like I was falling. Like, so that's I bring that up not like once again as a shame or anything, but unfortunately that's becoming so common that, you know, the youngest person I've seen now with cardiovascular disease was 29. The youngest person with type 2 diabetes is 8. You know, like these used to be old people diseases that we're seeing in much, much younger humans.
Yeah. Dr. Barry and I were just talking 2 weeks ago on the live that diabetes, when we first came out in practice 20 years ago, was extremely rare. And I was even told in P school that I would never have to prescribe insulin. That would always go to an endocrinologist. And, you know, it wasn't long into my career. It's like, well, crud, I'm having to prescribe insulin. I don't know what I'm doing here. I had to figure it out. So yes, it is becoming more and more common.
It used to be called adult onset. Like never, when I was in high school, when we, you know, studied about it, you had child onset and adult onset versus type 1 and type 2.
Yeah. We've talked about other eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia a little bit, but food addiction is also a disorderly eating type thing. And I feel like it makes that journey harder. So any advice to someone who has food addiction and they're trying to get out of this processed food world and get healthier?
Yeah, a couple of things. Like I do think, like we talked about at the very beginning of this, like your own philosophy is like you really have to change like how you think about certain things, just like you would with alcohol. You know, I no longer have this relationship with alcohol where I'm okay to have a little bit, you know, and I have to treat it like that and protect it like that. And when I say that, if someone asks me like, "Do you want a cookie?" No, no, thank you. No, like there's no like, well, maybe or whatever. And then it's your best of your ability, set up your own personal environment where that is not there. And I know when you go out into the world, there's going to be all kinds of different things. But in my overwhelming experience, you know, environment impacts us so much. You don't believe me. Watch what happens when they hand out snacks on a plane. No one was eating before. Everybody's eating now, you know. And then just like anything else, I think having support, you know, I know with like a lot of alcohol and like, you know, they have Narcotics Anonymous and they have Alcoholics Anonymous, and getting with a group if you can, or a coach to say, especially initially, to kind of be accountable, and also just realizing, you know, that it really is that just that every time you don't, that matters so much. You know, it matters every time you don't. Like that's the only way out of addiction, out of an eating disorder, out of anything really, is I'm going to take it one step at a time every day and just keep going. And last time was the last time. Like, you know, life no longer has these foods that maybe other people eat, and that's okay. Yeah. And you know, I also think like I'll give you a couple other things, especially Thanksgiving's coming up, but you know, focusing on other things in life, because we do need dopamine, you know, and we don't have enough good dopamine, in my opinion. I don't consider, you know, watching people crash their bikes on social media and all the like raccoon videos, like, you know, we need relationships, we need sunsets, we need beaches and walks, you know, all this type of stuff. So finding another source of dopamine, you know, when I was talking Amanda and I before the show, I had a really rough race, did not go well this past October. And when things are tough, yeah, I have all clients that I work with that, oh, I went and had this crappy food. Why? Oh, I was stressed out at work. Oh, my boss did this. Being able to execute despite of your circumstance too. And so after that, you know, I'm laying in the hotel feeling sorry for myself, you know, and immediately I was like, I got to sign up for some volunteer stuff. Like I need to get out of my own head,
Mm-hmm.
do something outside, do something that's going to make you feel good, because those temporary highs, I mean, those are what really keep you stuck. Is it you keep going back and you keep going back. So, oh, and then, for if you do celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas with family and friends, one thing that I've recently done, I've shared in the past, that my family, it's like big fat great wedding. I've got like 5. She's got like a lot. It's very stressful. We're used to it now. But there's going to be a lot of crappy food, and I imagine most places where you guys go, unless y'all go to somewhere that's like everybody's keto or carnivore, which is nice, but very unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on the family. Focus on the people. And guess what? One, you're going to earn a lot of like wife husband points. There's possibly, oh my gosh, they're over there talking to crazy Uncle Mike. That's so nice, Like, go talk to your relatives. Go spend some time. Go make it about what it's actually supposed to be. Don't lose your sobriety, your food sobriety on this event. And we always bring something we can have. Like if nothing else is available, we're eating this. So just like anything else in life, setting yourself up, having that philosophy, and get support too. I think support is so important. I've been running since I was 14. I'll be 43, and I have a coach. I have someone to help direct and guide me.
Mm-hmm.
So having like a health coach or a dietitian or somebody that you work with just to check in with, or however that looks. I mean, this is probably one of the reasons why we do this. To help encourage you guys. So.
Absolutely. I have friends and family that make fun of me for carrying my emergency beef sticks, but I always have
emergency. It's always in the car. It's like, what's in here? It's like, oh, we got a carnivore bar. Yeah.
And they've saved my family members in the past too. So they're like, I'm starving. I'm like, here, have an emergency stick. All right. I like this question because it's something I've ran into in clinic, and we'll get your opinion too. So 59-year-old carnivore, 2.5 years. Insulin is 2.9. HDL is 70. Triglycerides are 55, but A1C is 6.1. Fasting glucose starting to go up at 101. Calcium score is going up too. Let's avoid the calcium score question yet and just look at that panel, because it's not usually what people are used to seeing. Sugars go up when your insulin is low and trigs are low. So just general thoughts about that to start with.
Yeah, that's a great insulin level, by the way, 2.9 at great age. I mean, all those levels outside of the A1C are excellent. And the fact, Dr. Cywis was talking about this, and there's different opinions on this, and I would definitely defer to somebody with like more of a medical professional. But I think what I've heard and what makes sense, I think there's a few different theories, is you potentially have like insulin suppression. If you've been getting very, very low to almost no carbohydrates, you're going to be getting some glucose in the blood through gluconeogenesis, but you don't have any insulin in there to kind of help get it out of the bloodstream. So it has to go, back through and slow it. It basically is not going where it needs to go.
Yeah.
So although initially that probably was a great thing, carnivore really got like your labs. Clearly all your other labs are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But you would be somebody that I would say like, okay, let's do 25 grams of carbs a day. Let's throw in a half a cup of blueberries and some carrots or something, whatever you like. If you don't like that, then, but some kind of whole food carb once or twice a day. And I'm not even like, you can even start like 15 to 20 grams and see if that doesn't like the next, I mean, you can even retest. And I mean, you don't see huge changes with, usually until about 3 months. But you can test in a couple months, see like is 20, and you might even find like, oh, I kind of like having, some strawberries and then half an avocado, whatever. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. But getting just a little bit of carbohydrates on board, I'd be very curious if that doesn't improve those two levels.
Yeah, that is definitely one theory. There are other theories, one being that the longer you are ketogenic carnivore, your red blood cells stick around longer, so your A1C starts to falsely look elevated. So drawing a fructosamine gives you a better idea of that average sugar. And we often see fasting glucose creep up just a little bit, but as soon as you get going for your day, it comes back down, going from 101 to the 80s or 90s. So may start with a fructosamine level. And if it's kind of high too, then I agree with Michelle. It might be time to look at adding a little bit. Maybe you've given your pancreas too much of a break. It needs a little bit of a challenge.
For a minute, yeah.
remember to wake up and work again. And then the last part of your question, just about your calcium score in one vein. I don't know how much you do with calcium scores or hear of them, but when I see a calcium score in one vein go up, I think of there's been some sort of insult, like an infection or inflammation or something at that one site to go up. So definitely be checking inflammatory markers and check in with your doctor. So there's a couple different comments in here. We're coming up on our hour, but just about, or questions about the state of dietetics. And do you see more dietitians being open to a low carb diet? Do you still see it like as 100% hands off? And how can we help more dietitians be open to low carb diet?
I tell you, like, I have to be careful because part of me is like, I feel very encouraged, but then I'm also so into this world, it's like you kind of step outside of it and you're like, oh, wow, most dietitians are still pretty indoctrinated. So what I will say is I see more opportunities in organizations. I mean, literally last October was the first time I'm in a dietitian now almost 16 years that I had a paid opportunity to do low carb education. Like before it was like, you're going to have to hustle on your own. Good luck, And so opportunities like that, working with Marielle Glant and helping type 2 diabetics. So that is very positive for me. The dietitian education has not changed, which makes me think we're still kind of pumping out, but we have a lot more exposure to ketogenic diets, so I think at least you'd have dietitians kind of like asking questions and saying like, well, what about this? What about that? So I would say, has it improved? Maybe like 10%, we'll take it. It's like the step in the right direction. And I think, as we, I don't know, how do we improve the state of that? I think continuing to share your story, always ask questions too. Like being, like say you're in a situation, like I had this the other day with somebody that their mom is in the hospital. She has type 2 diabetes. The dietitian's trying to give her all these carbs. She's like, hey, she follows a low carb diet and her blood sugar's been really good. So we'd like to do that. Is there any issue with that? Like, yeah, no, we don't want to do that. Okay, well, why? Well, because why? Like you can challenge I think we need more people to get people thinking, it's kind of wild that we have to be the advocates, theoretically dietitians are supposed to be the health professionals, but unfortunately our education is still funded by, all the processed food companies. So I actually I had I get, emails for continuing education. And the latest one was sponsored by the Sugar Research Foundation. It's going to teach us about how it's okay to have sugar and only 10%. How, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, I wish I had better news, but I guess the good news is at least we have more awareness, like that in of itself. Like I do feel like the more, carnivore and keto used to be like, what is that? And now at least people kind of know what this is. Maybe you're a little more open to it. So who knows? Maybe the next 50 to 100 years, we'll get dietitians on board.
So in other words, people just need to continue to be the example.
Yeah, always live your example. Unapologetically too. Like if somebody's being weird or saying mean things on social media, like, okay, like I don't even argue anymore. Like don't argue, just go shine your light, don't waste your time or energy. Energy and time is finite. It's amazing. I see people like clapping back and forth online. I used to do that. Like, just go volunteer, go shine your light, go do something.
Go shine your light, share your story. Someone will see your story and will inspire them, or it even might make the dietitian or the nurse practitioner curious enough to go figure it out on their own the way that we did. So Michelle, thank you for joining me. I've enjoyed our time together and hope to get to chat again soon. Thank all of you guys for joining me. And next month on the third Monday, I am feeling again for Dr. Barry, and Dr. Tony Hampton will be on with me.
Oh, good. Say hi to Tony for me.
I haven't got to catch up with him in a while either, so I'm looking forward to chatting with him. So have a great rest of your day. Any last parting words you want to leave everyone out there?
I just keep doing what you're doing. Keep fighting the good fight. It matters. I guess that would be the last thing I say. Sometimes we think like, does it really matter if I eat this? It matters. Like you have no idea the ripple effect. Like somebody is watching you, whether it's your kids, your coworker. Like I can't tell you how many people like later in life have been like, gosh, remember when you were like years later, like, oh yeah, you said that about, you're eating meat, and that made me think. It's like really. So yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.